distinguished audience, it is my distinct honor to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Rounaq Jahan. Professor Jahan's illustrious career spans several decades and continents, reflecting her profound impact on academia and policy development. She has taught at some of the world's leading institutions, including Harvard University, Dhaka University, and Columbia University. Beyond academia, Professor Jahan has made significant contributions to international organizations as well. Her scholarly work is widely recognized with numerous influential publications to her name. These include Pakistan Failure in National Integration, Bangladesh Politics, Problems and Issues, and Political Parties in Bangladesh, Challenges of Democratization. Her most recent works, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Philosophy, Politics and Policies, and 50 Years of Bangladesh Economy, Politics, Society and Culture, co-authored and co-edited with Rehman Subhan, continue to shape discourse on South Asian politics and development. Professor Jahan's commitment to women's rights and development is evident through her founding of Women for Women in Bangladesh. And also in the book edited by Samuel Totten, where the eyewitness accounts are contained, over there, Professor Jahan's account has been included long ago regarding Bangladesh genocide. In recognition of her outstanding contributions, she received the prestigious Radcliffe Institute Graduate Society Award from Harvard University in 2008. Please join me in welcoming Professor Rounaq Jahan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tawheed, for your very kind introduction. I feel really very humbled. Let me first of all say that it is an honor and a privilege for me to be invited to give a keynote address in this virtual conference on teaching about genocide. I have to admit that I have no experience in teaching about genocide like many of you, but I have written about genocide, and most important, I have witnessed a genocide, the genocide of Bangladesh genocide in 1971. I have witnessed over the years how initially the Bangladesh genocide got widespread national recognition and international media attention. But I have also witnessed how the Bangladesh genocide was later forgotten. It was denied officially in Bangladesh, and also international media then turned their attention to other new cases of genocide. But what I have also witnessed is that the memory of genocide for people who have witnessed a genocide, that can never be suppressed. That memory survives, whether there is official recognition or official denial. And that memory is passed on from generation to generation. So what I wanted to start by telling you about my own case of how I started writing about genocide. Initially in the 70s, even though I witnessed the genocide and I witnessed the National Liberation War, when I started writing on politics, I didn't write about the genocide. I was writing on other political issues. And I had often wondered why Bangladeshis, we were not writing about genocide at that time. It was the outsiders who were writing about genocide or documenting genocide. And I later read that often there is a time lag, that people do not suffer, who are the victims, don't immediately start writing. And that had also happened in the Bangladesh case. My first opportunity to write specifically about genocide came only in the early 90s when Professor Samuel Totten wrote to me and asked me whether I would contribute a case study of Bangladesh genocide in a volume that he was editing with two other co-editors on centuries of genocide, where there would be case studies of other genocides that had taken place around the world. I immediately said yes, because I thought that that would give me an opportunity to put the Bangladesh case, which had been denied at that time in Bangladesh officially, and internationally there was very little recognition, that maybe I can then put that in a textbook, which can be then used in classes, or people can see or read about the Bangladesh genocide side by side with other genocides. I'm happy to note that that volume, which Samuel Totten edited, and where the Bangladesh case study, together with eyewitness accounts, got included. It was first published in 1995, and now it is in its 5th edition. The first edition in 95 was published by Garland Publisher. Then the second, third, and fourth volume were published by Routledge, and now the 5th volume in 2023 was published by University of Toronto. I'm just showing that volume. I have stayed with that volume over the last 30 years because with every edition, I needed to update what has been the latest situation about the genocide. But before I talk about actually, I'm not going to talk that much about the Bangladesh genocide because there has been 2 other presentations on Bangladesh. I would start by talking very generally about genocide education, why teaching about genocide is important, and then what are the challenges of teaching about genocide, which is the topic of my talk today. I feel very strongly that teaching about genocide is very important, particularly at this time particularly because of what is happening around the world. Because what we now find and what we are witnessing is that the early stages of genocide, or what leads to genocide, these kinds of conditions are now present in many countries around the world, whether it is in the West or in other parts of the world, that we now witness increasing divides between identity groups, whether it is identified by ethnicity or religion, that these divides are increasing, that people are getting polarized. There is hate speech, hatred, various groups are being dehumanized, they are being demeaned. So these are really fertile grounds on which later genocides are built. So I find that these kinds of grounds are present not only in liberal democracies in the West, such as in the USA or in Western Europe, but also in large democracies such as India. And we need to, every citizen, I think, needs to recognize this, that we should not be thinking that genocides take place in other countries or genocides take place or took place in another era, that genocides really can happen in our own countries, in our own time. And unless we recognize some of these early signs, early signals, and do something about it, and genocide education, I think, can play a very important role in preventing these early signs from escalating into later stages. Here, I think in this conference, we were mostly talking about genocide education in school settings. But I think if we are thinking of genocide education as a preventative measure, then I think we need to have genocide education or raise awareness about genocide in every institution in any country, whether it is the family, whether it is preschools, schools, universities, whether it is community organizations. But most important, I think, where we need to raise awareness is in our political institutions, in our political parties, because I find this, the divides, the hatred, all of these kinds of feelings are being really pushed by political actors or by political divides for very narrow political gains. And I think as citizens, as members of communities, as members of the global community, we need to be very aware of this and do something about really how our politics all over the world is really pushing these kinds of divides and hatred, and which is really a very dangerous situation that we are getting led to. Let me now turn to the main topic for my talk, and that is the challenges of teaching about genocide. And here I will focus mainly on three challenges. The first challenge is about documenting genocide. That how do you really prepare teaching materials? And I will draw a little bit on my own personal experience of writing that particular article in the early 90s about Bangladesh genocide for the Samuel Totten book. When Professor Totten wrote to me and asked me whether I would write this case study of Bangladesh, I very readily agreed, because I thought that I have witnessed a genocide and it will be very easy for me to write about this. But when I wrote about it and sent him a first draft, then I got so many questions that everything I was saying about that what happened to Bengalis, that I was told that I have to provide evidence for everything. I have to source every accusation that I am making. So it was then really I had to go back and almost every other sentence I have to reference writings from newspapers way back from 71, archival material. So this took a very long time, and I was really taken aback that to write about genocide, that you have to follow a very strict guideline about what really is a genocide, that there is this intention to eliminate a particular group. And so that documentation took me a very vigorous kind of research. Then I had to also include eyewitness testimonies. And in the early 90s, when I was writing in Bangladesh, because of the official denial, there were not that many eyewitness accounts that was available, and most accounts were written in Bengali, in Bangla. So I had to then carefully select whatever was available and then translate it in Bangla. So this documentation, this very careful documentation, so that it meets international standards of genocide and really putting all the evidence, I found was really quite a challenge. Just writing and saying there was a genocide was, or that I witnessed it, that was not good enough. So I think that this documentation process is very challenging. And then I think, but as the two other speakers in Bangladesh mentioned earlier, that right now Bangladesh actually has lot more documentation, lot more testimonies. We have also institutions, courses, and now the challenge, I think, for the Bangladesh case would be how to integrate all these materials which are available in the national curriculum and also internationally in various institutions. As Tawheed was saying earlier, that when he visited USC, then he found that Bangladesh materials are not there. So I think it is now possible then to bring to people's attention some of the materials that are already there in Bangladesh and then integrate them in the global literature. But what I found, thinking about how the memory of genocide in Bangladesh has been passed through from one generation to another, even when there was official denial, that classroom teaching, that has one kind of value. But I personally think that for capturing the attention of younger students or the community at large, visual media or literature, these theater, drama, role playing, these various methods are often much more effective. For instance, in Bangladesh, even before a case study of genocide was written, I think two memoirs by two women, both were initially written in Bangla and later one was translated in English. They wrote their daily diaries of 1971, Mushtari Shafi and also Jahanara Imam. And then two films. One was Muktir Gan, and then later that film was shown to ordinary people, and then their interactive reaction, Muktir Patha. These played a much more, these had, I think, much more widespread impact in reaching a much wider audience. And even when all through 80s, officially there was no recognition or people were not talking about genocide, the cultural activists through theater and through folk music, they were keeping alive these stories of what happened during 71. So I think that this other media is very important. The last point I want to make, and this I refer to the earlier presentation on Cambodia. What I find interesting is that in Bangladesh, for instance, many of these narratives about genocide were written or at a time when there was not an official adoption of or official recognition of genocide. But I think when officially genocide is recognized by a particular government, then there is always this risk that that can be used politically to gain certain kinds of make certain gains for a particular group of people. And as the Cambodian study was shown. So I think this is something that one should remember, that genocide happened, it affected everybody across political spectrum, and it should not be captured by, the narrative should not be captured by one group or another. Let me then go into the second challenge that I want to talk about. And this is about that we actually know very little about what really are the impacts, various impacts of genocide on both the victims and also perpetrators. That how after generations, because the memory of genocide is there, always there, and story is told and retold. It becomes also contested. But what really are the impacts on the victims, for instance? Here I can only talk about victims as, because in Bangladesh, we were the victims, for instance. And even though when we are teaching about genocide, we talk about reconciliation, we talk about justice, we have various mechanisms. But what are really the victims' own perspective about what do they understand by reconciliation, or what is their definition of justice? We make all these various concepts, then we translate them into certain mechanisms, and governments, international agencies, they accept some of this. But what do actually people themselves feel? How do victims feel? What is their definition? I think we know very little about that part. My own personal concern about the impact on a society of genocide, particularly in the Bangladesh case, is how Bangladesh society was transformed. Bangladesh before 71 was a very peaceful place where people really were not engaged in any widespread violence. And they were generally very peace-loving people. And suddenly, on an unarmed population who settled their conflict through peaceful means, through reconciliations, village councils, suddenly massive violence was inflicted on them. After that, then once you suffer through all that violence, then it is not easy, I found, that you could eliminate violence. People sometimes, once you tolerate violence, you witness violence. I wish that then Bangladesh could go back to the previous situation where people were not resolving their conflict through non-violent means. We still see a lot of use of violence in terms of resolving conflict. So I think that's this whole, what happens to a population when they are suddenly subjected to massive violence, and then its after effect. I think at least this is a question that I would raise with some of the educators who, of course, have followed various genocide cases much more than I have. Because ultimately, we would want, at least I would want people across the world to reject hatred, reject violence. But how how do you transition to that? The third challenge that I would again want to pose, I have no answers, want to pose for the educators is that what lessons are we drawing from all these various case studies? What do we actually tell our students? Because if our ultimate goal is that we don't want to have any single genocide to take place anywhere in the world, then what skills really are we giving to our students, or if we are advocating or training to those people that we are training, what skills are we giving them so that they can prevent another genocide? Again, I have no answers as to what skills we can give people, but I think that this is something that I think we would really need to discuss, that given our tools that we use, is this what kinds of skills then we are producing for our, I think there was a session earlier about pedagogy. But as I said earlier, my own concern is that, yes, teaching about genocide in classrooms, in schools, these are very important. But people learn, from various other institutions, people's behavior is impacted by the larger environment of living in a community, living in a particular political culture, and more now in social media, in a world of social media. So how we are going to change the mindset and behavior or of these various institutions, I think this is a larger question that I think we need to ponder about. So I would like to thank you for your time. And I was told that I should leave 10 minutes for question and answer. So I think I have another 10 minutes that I'll be very happy to answer questions. I have to already warn Tawheed that I cannot read chat boxes. So any questions that come, if Tawheed can then tell me or read out that question, then I can try to answer. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. And as I said, that I am actually not a educator of genocide studies. You are much more knowledgeable about that subject. But from my own life's experiences and writing that one particular article and observing what I have observed in Bangladesh over the last 50 years, I shared my experiences with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Jahan, for your very insightful presentation. We have a question here now. Mr. Ben Shepherd, or Dr. Ben Shepherd, he has written that Tim Schneider's book, slightly a long question, but please try to, I expect your attention. Tim Schneider's book, Black Earth, The Holocaust as History and Warning, discusses how environmental crisis can worsen economic, social, and political tensions, precipitate resource wars, and create even more fertile conditions for future genocides to take place in. Do you think there are opportunities for fusing genocide education with environmental education in ways that could strengthen the ability of both to help combat these dangers? So slightly long question, but yep.
Thank you. Yeah. Certainly, I think for the younger generation who are now much more attuned to the environmental degradation, climate change, and how the whole planet is becoming endangered, I think so that should be part of this. But I think in terms of, as far as my own take is on this, is that what are the root causes of even environmental degradation or war or genocide is that how our own values and behavior in terms of power, that we want to dominate one group or one individual would like to dominate another person or a group. So I think that how do you then create other kinds of values that we don't want to, say, for instance, if we take an example of environmental education, that we want to control, we want to take out all the resources, we want really this sense of dominating, exploiting somebody else or the whole art or a resource. So I think these are really these values are really driving us towards these behavior patterns, whether it is in destroying environment or whether it is really demeaning and dehumanizing another group. I think these are that we all are equal. We need to live in this world. I think how do you get these kinds of base values that people have of dominating over others, capturing over others, being superior to somebody else, and trying to push down other fellow human beings, or exploiting completely Mother Earth. So I think this we need to somehow instill another value in people. That's my take on this.
Thank you very much. And also, the thing is that in your presentation, you said a very important aspect, that not only the educational institution in a society, starting from family level, it should go up to the political parties and also all over the society. It is really very important observation. So also what I feel that in case of Bangladesh, especially, or genocide that take place, forgotten genocide cases, in case of in the United Nations, in the genocide prevention desk, they also, when they go for some kind of learning workshop or anything, they do not add cases like Bangladesh and others. So they should also have some kind of educational material so that people come to know all over the world. Very quickly, I'm asking you a question, as I didn't find any other question. This is how can educators and policymakers in Bangladesh balance the need for accurate genocide education with the potential political and social sensitivities surrounding the topic? And what role can civil society play in supporting this educational effort? If you share some of your opinion.
Yeah, as I mentioned first, that we first of all need to build a consensus that across political spectrum, that Bangladesh genocide, a genocide in Bangladesh took place, because we witnessed that when genocide took place, it did not make any differences between one particular political group or another. And even though Hindus were initially targeted, the Muslim Bengalis were also targeted, so that this whole Bengali groups, that genocide affected everybody. So we need to have a widespread, this whole narrative about genocide should not become at all contested, even though this, I know that in many countries that becomes contested. So I think for Bangladesh, it is very important that we establish this, that the genocide in Bangladesh that affected across board everybody. It didn't make any distinction at that time between a rich Bangladeshi or a poor Bangladeshi, an urban Bangladeshi, a urban Bengali or a rural one, Hindu or Muslim. All Bengalis were targeted, and also it also affected people from every political party. So I think we need to first recognize that the genocide affected people. Second, I think that it is much better for, the whole Bangladesh genocide memory was kept alive not by government, but by citizens, by civil society groups, by cultural groups. So from 75 to, say, for instance, 1996, at the official level, nothing much was done about bringing the perpetrators of genocide or collaborators to justice. For instance, there was not that much official talk about genocide. But I think this was kept alive by civil society. The Bangladesh Liberation War Museum that you and the other speaker from Bangladesh talked about, this was completely a voluntary effort by civil society. And I think it was so much the better that this memory was kept alive. All the narratives were done by citizens groups. And I think civil society should take the lead. We, of course, need a congenial government atmosphere or political atmosphere so that there is no official denial of genocide, as happened in the Bangladesh case. So, but I think, and then of course, if there is a prosecution, then the government has a role to play. But I think that the civil society has a very important role to play to ensure that this is really the storytelling is done by ordinary citizens, documentation is also done, the ownership is in the hands of the people and not in the hands of any particular government. So that is the way I look at it. But I think here, Bangladesh, where we are still lacking is international recognition. That even though we have a lot of documentation available in Bangladesh, but US, for instance, and we have not officially recognized Bangladesh genocide. So I think there is a role that the Bangladeshis who live in America or internationally, they can play in lobbying that this be recognized officially as a genocide. I mean, if the Armenians after so many years can get official recognition, I see no reason why Bangladesh cannot get that recognition. Yeah, I'm told that we are going into another time. So thank you so much for your kind attention. I think I have to sign off. We can talk about it later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jahan, for your enriching deliberation and the thoughts that you shared in the question answer session. The thing is, we have time constraint. On behalf of the organizing team, I am conveying you thanks again for joining us. Thank you very much, Professor Jahan.
Thank you for giving me time. Thank you.
Bye. We're going.